Hi, you are watching SightsIn Plus, and this is Romesh Shivas. Please to subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates, and conversation with the top-notch CHROs, thought leaders, and business heads. Today, we are trying to dive deep the emotional intelligence at the workplace, and we have two experts. Let me introduce Mr. Atul Tiwari is a Chief Human Resource Officer at Spice Money, and Ms. Shruti Varma is a trainer and counseling psychologist. Shruti, I think the topic is related to the emotional intelligence, so I should start with you. So first, if you can help us to understand that what is the emotional intelligence, and especially in context to the workplace.
So I think it's a very interesting topic that you've touched upon today for this particular discussion. So there is a certain textbook definition of emotional intelligence that tells us that there are 5 different aspects to emotional intelligence, and they are increasing our emotional self-awareness, including our self-management, keeping ourselves motivated, uh, having a certain amount of empathy towards others, and building certain social skills. But this is more a textbook definition. How I like to understand, especially because we are all the time surrounded by so many of our Indian scriptures as well, and all of them in a sense talk about maintaining a certain sense of calmness and balance within us. So I think all these scriptures really encapsulate emotional intelligence extremely well when they say that when we feel a sense of stability and calmness and balance, within us or inside of us, that truly is emotional intelligence. And when we talk about the workplace, I feel that when we have a sense of calmness and balance, it impacts every decision that we make. If you see that when we are overcome with emotion, because we have emotions that happen to us every second of the day, there is no moment without an emotion. And if we let our emotions govern our actions, then we don't take very wise decisions. But when we have a sense of calmness, we take good decisions. Now, whether we decide to, speak confidently in a certain presentation, if we decide to problem solve in a certain way, resolve conflicts in a certain way, all these are dictated by emotional intelligence because we have that sense of stability within us. I think that's how I'll define it.
Atul, what is your take on this?
So I think, Ramesh, thank you so much for bringing this topic. And this is something we all, as a corporate world, are envisaging that this is one area which everybody should be expert at. And many times people feel that's a given. So I think this is one piece when we look at it, and especially personally from my perspective, is, Ramesh, that very simply we define that what exactly the ability you have to manage your emotions and understand the emotion of the person around, people around you. That's very simple definition which we look at it. And if you are able to manage and handle this, I think that's how you are emotionally intelligent or emotionally less intelligent is what we look at it. And as Shruti mentioned, yes, of course, there are 5 elements. It's a lot of key aspects, which is like how much you are self-aware of. So you'll be able to manage your emotions if you are well aware of about yourself. What all things triggers you, what all drives you, what motivates you, what excites you, what puts you off, right? If you know well, and the same element you put it on the other side and understand the other soul or a body which is there, what exactly happens to that, and somewhere you try to manage and handle things is where your emotional intelligence or a wisdom comes into a picture, Romesh. So that's how I look at it broadly, be it your personal life or professional life, but this is how I put emotional intelligence in simple words, that you are able to manage yourself and you're able to manage and understand the emotions of the other person around you.
And Shruti, when we're talking about in terms of the workplace, means this is a kind of leadership skill, and you're managing a lot of people at the workplace. As the self-awareness, that is the first, in the pyramid, we're talking about the emotional intelligence. So, calmness, we're also talking about. Calmness means also returning back to the normal state of mind. This is not, as we're talking, it's not as easy. Maybe you had something bad in the morning and still thinking about that. Coming back to the normal immediately, how quickly you come back, that is your emotional intelligence. How we can practice this, how we can develop this, that is very important. What is your take on this?
Actually, Ramesh, you've nailed it on the head. How soon do we return to normal is the key thing. When we conduct our trainings in emotional intelligence, there is one particular exercise which I make the participants do, and I've found that to be extremely helpful. And that practice is identification of your hot buttons, right? We all have certain trigger points which bother us in some way or the other, and we have that for all the emotions, and they are all unique. So, for example, if something makes me angry, it doesn't mean that same thing makes you angry. Maybe something else makes you angry. So, I'll give you a more concrete example. So, for example, I don't respond well to tardiness by other people. So, if people come to my meetings late, it kind of bothers me. So, I know that's a trigger point. Once I build that awareness of what are my own self trigger points, then I can be aware. And when I know a situation like this might occur, how do I want to manage it? So I think that's the point number one, that you have to be aware of your trigger points, especially for certain negative emotions, such as fear, such as disgust, and anger, because these are the most critical negative emotions that we human beings find it the hardest to manage. So once we have identified and we know that these can occur in future, we can have a strategy ready for when they occur. So for example, I can have a strategy. How do I want to respond to a situation where people are coming late to my meetings? So somebody, for example, in my workshop yesterday said that they don't take entitlement when somebody comes with a sense of entitlement, that, yeah, this belongs to me. They don't take it very well. So when we know that there are people who are going to come with that attitude, we can have a strategy ready in our heads on how we want to respond. The other thing is that I make sure, and I personally run a YouTube channel also by the name of Candid Conversations with myself, which is all about returning back to normal and maybe a slightly more Zen state. And it is dedicated to meditation and different kinds. There are meditations dedicated to stress management, for example, or there are affirmations, or there are ways to negate our negative self-talk, which means that we are positivizing our self-talk. So I feel these are certain strategies which one can adopt to build a higher level of self-awareness. So basically identify your triggers and meditate upon them so that you are aware that this is something that is bothersome for me, and this is how I can return back to normal.
Absolutely. Meditation, that helps a lot. I think this spirituality, that also helps you a lot when we talk about the emotional intelligence. I was reading somewhere about Daniel Goldman, that he has been here in India for the 10 years, and he
Hmm.
has been the spiritual leader, a spiritual teacher. So and he is always referring about this. It means it has some connection about the spirituality. And Atul, how do you see at the workplace? Means sometimes you see the conflict among the team members, and as a cheerleader, you have to be there to resolve the conflict. How do you see
Yeah.
how you help in that situation?
You actually touched upon one point to start with, is spirituality. I think when I see clearly on the Indian wisdom management style and modern management style, if you see, these are contradictory in terms of how it is being taught or being looked at. So Indian
Hmm.
wisdom management talks more about self-management, the internal management. If you manage yourself internally, and spiritually, of course, is the best path to do that. If you do it, everything will be managed. So all your issues, even if the conflicts, point of difference or difference of opinions, thoughts, right, everything can be taken care of. But the modern management says how you can manage the outside of you. So manage resources who are not in your control, manage people who are not in control, manage everything outside you. So that's the classic difference between Indian management style, which unfortunately is not being taught too much, but only in our scriptures or religious books. but that's what it has been. And the modern management talks more about this piece. And so that's why I say spirituality is one very important element, which we should look at it. More importantly, I believe the best way how I typically look at it, and whenever I talk to people, is the first and the foremost is how you are observing. So you practice the observing power, that how you're observing people. That's one of the biggest thing. If you practice well, you will be able to understand and read and then judge what exactly the issue is. So observation is one very important piece wherein I mean, hectic, busy lifestyles are there, right? It's all too easy for all of us to lose touch with our emotions. So how we reconnect, try setting a timer for our various points during the day, right? When the timer goes off, take a deep breath. Notice how you're feeling emotionally. And that's how we do that. Sometimes we are stressed or we are on the extreme situations. So many people have found a hack. Okay, I'll take a deep breath. Right? Three Idiots movie comes, all is well. Man ko behla lo. So all those ways are there wherein you are trying to practice that how I'm observing and controlling my emotions. So that is one piece wherein you are paying attention to where that emotion is showing up, physically feeling in your body, and what the sensation feels like. The more we practice, the more it will become our nature. So that is one piece. The second is, I think, pay attention to how you behave, right? So it's one is observing and feel, and then how you behave. So your behavior, instances, when somebody said that, what was my reaction? Whether I responded or reacted, right? So there is a very classic difference. So how you're looking at that, that is another piece wherein you'll be able to practice emotional awareness very minutely, and it will ultimately come as part of your behavior. Then also third is question your opinions. In this hyper connected world, it is very easy to fall into an opinion bubble, right? This is a state of existence where your own opinions are constantly reinforced by people with similar viewpoints. So take time to read the other side of the story, have your views challenged, and that's how you'll be able to empathize, even if you still feel that they are right, but still you challenge, and this will help you to understand other people and be more receptive to new ideas. And then also the best part is how you practice it. Take responsibility of your feelings. You have reacted, but then you say, oh, because of XYZ reasons, this is how I have behaved, and hence I reacted in that way, or I took action in that way. I think if you'll start owning up that whatever has come, my emotion or behavior, it is something which nobody else has done it, but it is me. And hence, accepting and working on it will really have a positive impact on overall areas of our life. Also, take time to celebrate the positives, right? Many times we don't do that. So that's a key part of emotional intelligence, in celebrating and reflecting. That's where you'll get motivated. And it is linked to the motivation, that positive moments in life, which will give experience to our positive emotions. And generally more resilient, more likely you will have fulfilling relationships, which will build with people, right? But don't ignore the negative. That is also another part of it, because if you are ignoring the negative, then you are living in a fool's paradise. You are leaving the other side of the personality or aspect of you, right? So that's how you'll become more fully rounded individual.
I think we have covered enough about the self-awareness part. It is how to manage your emotions, and also the motivational part, how we can keep motivated ourselves. Now, I think we should also discuss that how we can understand others' emotions. How that is the third part, I think, how we can understand the others' emotions, because then we will discuss about how we can manage the conflicts and these other things. So, Suti, how do you see how we can understand the others' emotions? As Atul was talking about the observation, and for the other practices we can do it.
So when it comes to others' emotions, we can only hypothesize, right? Our internal world is something that we understand the best. So once we create self-awareness, which means that we are able to be aware of what exactly we are feeling. And the key part is to develop a very vast vocabulary of emotions. You know, most of the people, if you ask them, how are you feeling? How are you today? They'll say good, bad. Like a lot of people don't have a very vast vocabulary that you could know. You could be feeling angry, you could be feeling agitated, irritated, annoyed. There's so many different nuances to those particular words. I think the first thing is that we devise or we learn a good amount of vocabulary when it comes to emotions, so that we are able to decipher the difference. When we can understand this is how we are feeling, we can extrapolate and understand how the other person might be feeling. And sometimes we go through this one particular tool, it's called the ruler tool, right? And within that, what we teach is where R stands for recognizing the emotion. So, for example, if I'm feeling scared, scared means that I have just lost something which was extremely important to me. I begin to understand and recognize that this is the emotion that I'm feeling. You recognize it. Then you understand what does it mean for you. It means that you want to overcome that loss or grief for some time and you need some downtime. So R is for recognition, U is for understanding. Then we come to L, where we learn to label, okay, whether it is sadness or whether it is anger mixed with sadness, or is it another variation of sadness. We begin to label that particular emotion. And then when we come to E, we learn to express how to, talk to other people about what we are feeling. Because most people don't know how to, for example, if they're feeling angry, they don't know how to express assertively. They want to lash out, or they want to be submissive, or they want to be passive aggressive, or many different things. So you learn to express correctly. And then the last part of the tool is that you learn to self manage, right? So when we learn to do these in ourselves, we can talk about managing others, because we can hypothesize that if we feel like that, then they must be feeling like that. And then another part of the bridge that we use is empathy, where we try to put ourselves in other people's shoes and understand this is what they might be going through, and therefore this should be our approach. I think that's how we can manage the understanding of the other people.
I think very beautifully you have explained this. And for this observation, as Atul was talking about, and listening very, with full attention, those that is also very important. You need to listen with the full attention. Does not mean you're walking on phone and somebody is talking to you. So that is not going to work. So that is also very important. Atul, now let's move to the HR part as well. This is an important skill. This is a leadership skill. So that must be in a candidate when you're hiring. How generally you assess when you are in interview? How do you assess that this person has? So you do any psychometric test? You use any another tool? How do you assess that this person has the emotional intelligence?
So, Ramesh, yes, for us, typically when we look at it, one of the statistics also shows that 58% of the job performance is attributed to your emotional intelligence and leadership, driven by that. So, I think that's a very significant portion of any individual's effectiveness in a work setting, which is influenced by their ability to recognize and manage their own emotions as well as the emotions of others. Right. So, if that is the kind of attribute is there in terms of the performance of individual, we definitely have two pieces to it: how we manage and develop that and assess basically the emotional intelligence part. One is that we definitely have an assessments at the time of hiring, but to a limited level, not at each level. And I believe wherein at managerial level and above, some sort of assessment is there, which is part of our hiring. The second part is also your leadership development and managing the second layer of leadership, how you're developing their emotional intelligence piece. And the important part is that how you're evaluating and assessing their personality, right? So one is that your peer feedback, which is 360 degree or 270, 180 degree kind of feedback, which typically gives a very clear picture that this is how you are being experienced by your colleagues at work, right? And that clearly defines that what is your intelligence level, what is your acceptance, which are the areas which you need to work on. For example, Hogan is one piece which we have actually implemented for our top leadership. And that's where we define exactly that what kind of profile, leadership profile you are at, what are the areas of development, what you want to work on, what are your derailers, right? So it helps both on your own self-awareness and also your areas of development. And very interestingly, we found, Romesh, that sorry, there are two aspects of the personality. One is myself, who is an individual. The second is also me as a role holder in the organization, what role I am playing. Maybe I am a sales head, for example. My personality per se is a introvert personality. But my sales role demands me to be sociable, high sociability, right? In that case, that is one area which I need to develop on and work on. And hence, this is how you identify and measure that what is the delta change which has happened. So there is a conscious effort which is being put in by individual as well as by the organization, or L&D function also puts into that. The second is also thriving index, for example, is there. So my second layer of leadership is wherein we have clearly defined thriving index. Those are some personality traits, and which ultimately all these things leads to your emotional intelligence and wisdom, how you are handling the emotion of the other person, your superiors, your subordinates, your peers. The most important part right now in today's context at workplace, Romesh, is how you are handling the relationships and managing the emotions at a peer level.
So if you see right now, we are talking about a lot more about the generative AI. We are talking about the artificial intelligence, and there are a lot of chatbots, for the workplace we are using for the engagement, for this purpose, for that purpose. Do you think somehow, it is replacing also the emotional intelligence?
That's actually such a phenomenal question, and this is a question which is going on in everybody's mind right now. So, my personal experience, because I have also been using AI in form of ChatGPT and Google Gemini in some of my projects. So here's what I feel. I feel this is amazing at giving you some very quick answers. You want some headlines written, it will even write those headlines, it'll spin out some beautiful words. But what I feel is that it is lacking the human intelligence and it is spitting out answers of a machine. What I mean by that is that no matter how much you try, at least that's the situation right now. In a foreseeable future, I don't think AI is replacing human beings in any way. And the differentiator is emotions. The machine does not have any consciousness. It can give out very intelligent answers. It can give me some very complex solutions. If I tell this to give me a marketing plan, it'll give me a marketing plan like that. But will it be able to replace me as a human being who's sitting and chatting? No, because it misses out on the experience of being human, right? At the end of the day, human beings in a company, in a workplace, do need to interact with other human beings. Sure, AI will replace perhaps some of the processes, but it cannot possibly replace out the human touch, because at the end of the day it does not have that consciousness. It can only give you the cognitive part of the brain. It cannot give you anything more than the cognitive part as we stand right now. Tomorrow nobody really knows what can happen with AI, but as we stand today, that's my personal view.
It can replace a bit cognitive empathy, but not the emotional empathy.
That's right, it can replace IQ, not EQ.
Not EQ, right? Atul, what is your take on this?
Ramesh, I think Steve very beautifully put up this point, but my also some bit of little biased. This thing is that, see, ultimately it is artificial intelligence. The word itself is artificial, right? So it cannot replace the human intelligence, and that's what I see. It's not of artificial intelligence cannot replace the human wisdom. So human is not intelligent, but the wisdom comes into picture, and
Mm.
and I think wisdom is much intelligent than intelligence in terms of the word, and that's where I think I clearly see, of course, as AI is coming, it is disruptive. It is making life much easier. It is giving us a lot of hindsights, insights, and foresights. But what exactly needs to be done is where human comes into picture. So one is, of course, it's a very distinctive quality that people makes relevant. People makes that it is relevant in emotional intelligence is that while artificial intelligence aims to mirror human intelligence, but it's very difficult to duplicate the intelligence of intellectual intelligence, I would say. Since AI is incapable of feeling pain, it requires empathy, right? And in-depth awareness of the human condition, which AI cannot understand, including pain and suffering, right? So smart corporate executives or business owners, when we see, they are aware of the value of appealing to emotions of their personal, their team members and customers. So these kind of human interactions cannot be achieved by the machine for sure. The second is also it works based on the algorithm. So a lot of data needs to be fetched in. By the time the data is being feeded through the AI, I mean, a lot of other emotions comes into picture. So many times we feel that it becomes irrelevant, right? It cannot easily mimic human reasoning or the capacity of a human brain to analyze, improvise, or gather information.
Great, great wisdom and intelligence. So thank you so much, Shruti and Atul, for joining the conversation and being the part of this. Thank you so much.